Hi, everybody. It's David Wildstein. I'm the editor of the New Jersey Globe. Welcome to Meet the Candidates. And tonight I'm speaking with Darius Mayfield. He is the Republican nominee for Congress in New Jersey's 12th district. That includes parts of Mercer, Somerset, Middlesex counties. Darius, I'm forgetting one, aren't I? There's a fourth.
Mercer, Middlesex, Somerset,
Somerset.
as well as Union, one town in
In
Union.
Union, yeah, Plainfield.
Yes,
God, this is what happens this time of year when you do something at night and your brain gets a little fried. So
yeah.
I apologize, but welcome. Thank you for talking to me tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, man.
So this is your second time. You have you ran against Bonnie Watson Coleman
Yeah.
2 years ago. My impression is you never stopped. You've been running nonstop for Congress for 4 years now.
Yeah, I have. I always go back to something the old gubernatorial candidate, Jack Ciattarelli, told me after my first election. And he said, listen, it takes 2.7 times to run for office to actually win. And, I understood exactly what that meant. I was just a first time candidate, had never ran for any political office before and tried my hand at it, went out there and I knew I was going to work hard, which I did. First time around, knocked on over 25,000 doors personally. This time around, with the groups that have been knocking doors for us, we've knocked over another 10,000 doors. So in those last 4 years, we've knocked almost 40,000 doors here in the district. And as you said, I've never stopped, even after 2022. I dedicated myself to this. I knew I wanted to run again. I knew I wanted to take another crack at it, especially after they shut down all the machines in Mercer County and we had that whole fiasco happen. So I jumped back in, kept going at it, and here we are, David. I'm excited about November 5th and see what happens.
So you were first time candidate when you ran in 2022. What made you decide that you want to start a political career as a congressman? It's the usual question people get when Congress is the first office is why not? And by the way, it's asked disproportionately of young candidates.
Yeah.
Why not run for local government? Why not run for the legislature? Move your way up. What made you decide to get into this?
Well, I mean, honestly, like a lot of people in this country, I think I became a lot more politically cognizant in 2015 and 2016 once Trump started to run. Obviously, there was a lot of hoopla around that. The media made a big deal out of it. And, he's a big personality, so it was bound to happen. So, as I started getting more involved, I became a lot more interested. I obviously liked what President Trump had to say. In fact, the story with that is I was actually sitting on the couch with my girlfriend in 2015 when Donald Trump and Melania came down the escalator. And about 10, 15 minutes into his speech, I looked at her and I said two things. I said, one, that's a real American. And two, that's going to be our next president. And I've never wavered since then throughout that entire term. And, the way our politics, I believe, kind of changed a little bit once Trump jumped in, how disparaging people were that were elected to office to represent us, the people, and not just on the left, on the right as well. That just kind of hit me a certain way, especially being from a state like New Jersey, which is the most diverse state in the country. I happen to be running for office in the most diverse county in the state, which is Middlesex County. And, that's also where I was born and raised. And when I was growing up, I had Black friends, white friends, Muslim friends, Jewish friends, Christian friends, Democrat friends, Republican friends. And, we didn't have to worry about a lot of the things that our leaders, so-called leaders nowadays are really focused on. So to me, it felt like we needed people that were not actually going to talk the talk, but actually walk the walk, as I've been doing all my life, as I was born and bred to do. So it was a very easy transition for me. People always ask me why I'm so nice and so articulate and willing to talk to any and everyone, because that's just who I am. And, as far as your other question, as far as, picking Congress to run for, the reason I did that is because I'm a man that understands my limitations. I understand who I am. And, although I said I got politically inclined once Donald Trump decided to run, I'd been paying attention to our federal politics, at least for quite some time, especially with Obama during the Bush years and things of that sort. So I was definitely much more educated on federal policy and what was going on federally than I was locally and statewide. And please, everybody out there, remember, local politics is politics. That's where politics starts. So just because I went that route doesn't mean you have to. But I just felt more comfortable speaking about federal issues. And, again, I wanted to change and I want to change the political discourse in our country, not just on a local level, not just on a state level, but nationally. And I think I'm the right voice, the right type of person to do that. So again, I'm looking forward to November 5th, man, and taking this thing national and really starting to change the political discourse in this country.
What's your gripe with Bonnie Watson Coleman? What issues do you find that you disagree with her on the most?
Well, listen, it's definitely nothing.
Simply, it's the question you always ask a challenger, which is why should the incumbent not be reelected?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's policy issues, and Bonnie, she's been a fixture in New Jersey for quite some time. From my understanding, a lot of my family knows her, her family. So it's never been anything personal between her and I. In fact, I believe through both campaigns, I've remained very respectful to her as a woman, to her as a person. So and that's consciously done because, again, I want to change the political discourse in our country. As you said, any issues I have with her are definitely going to be on a policy level and in other things, because, as I said to you, part of the reason why I jumped into this race is because our elected officials were so discouraging. So with Bonnie, you often see when she's at her events, when she's speaking in interviews, when she's speaking in public, she's very divisive. She's very disparaging, especially towards Republicans or what they deem MAGA Republicans, especially. And to me, that's unbecoming of somebody not only running for office, but actually sitting in office right now, because no matter how you feel about the policies, what any of your constituents actually hold personally, you're there to actually govern for everyone, no matter if they're a MAGA Republican, a progressive Democrat, whatever it is, you need to bring everybody to the table. You need to work with everybody. So when it comes to that, I'm definitely jumped in this race because I wanted to bring a different voice, a unifying voice. Also, her policy on drugs in our country, Bonnie's on record saying she'd like to legalize every single drug. We're not just talking about weed. We're not just talking about coke. We're talking about everything, fentanyl, heroin. And she's never actually corrected that to say that there would be any exceptions. They've tried things like this out in places like Philadelphia, and we see how much of a wreck Philadelphia is. In fact, when I was actually doing cleanups out in Philadelphia, they were trying to create a drug safe zone out there. And thank God the people I was with out there actually fought back as to where that was never able to come to fruition. But if it was up to Bonnie Watson Coleman, we have safe drug zones like that all over New Jersey, all over this country. All drugs would be legalized. And I just do not think that's the way to actually reel ourselves back in from this drug epidemic that we have in this country. One of the things we need to do, obviously, is, first of all, stop the flow of drugs at the border, which means closing our border down, which means securing our border, something that Bonnie and this administration have been unable to do. And in fact, they've provided over the most amount of illegal crossings in our country's history, which probably came with the most amount of drug crossings, the most amount of human trafficking and other things. So, there's a lot more policies that we can get into, with her and the Democrats that I don't agree with. But those would definitely be some of the top two as far as her drug policy and as far as how disparaging she is towards the constituents she's actually elected to represent.
Yeah, I mean, she spent 4 years in Congress while Donald Trump was in the White House. There were a lot of Democrats didn't approve of Donald Trump. She was at the top of that list. She was one of his fiercest opponents during 4 years. You're in a district that Democrats win in the presidential race by over 30 points. Do you think maybe she's representing the mainstream of your district, or do you see this district all of a sudden changing toward a desire to have Donald Trump back in the White House?
Yeah, I actually think she represents a minority of people in our district. Let's not forget that before Rush Holt came to office in 2000, it was all Republicans that held this seat here in the 12th district. And even though we redistricted a few years ago, it hasn't changed that much. They took out a couple of towns. So, we've had Republican representation here before. In fact, over the last 3 to 4 years, we've actually gained more Republican representation. That's why I say all politics starts local, because in places like Saraville, it's now 100% Republican, a Republican council, Republican mayor. In South River, it's 100% Republican council, Republican mayor, something that's never happened there before. In Milltown, New Jersey, which is in the district, it's all Republican now, Republican council, Republican mayor. So this didn't just start, 3 years ago. Didn't just start for the 2024 election. It's going 6, 7, 8 years now where there has been a transition in New Jersey where we have Republican registration up way more than we do Democrat registration over the last few years. And again, towns like Milltown, Saraville, Middlesex in my county that are all Republican, these are statements that are being made. I think one of the things I love about the New Jersey people is they really do pick the person and not the party. That's why we've had so many Republican governors over the last, decade or two here in New Jersey, even though we're supposed to be a hard blue state. When you have quality candidates, I find that New Jerseyans are very open to accepting those candidates and giving them a shot. For instance, in 2022, when I ran, my best performing county was the most diverse county, the one that's supposed to be most Democratic, and that was Middlesex County, where I won almost 45% of the vote here. And I think we're going to go over the 50% mark this time, with so many more people actually coming out. So, listen, if we all sat back and thought this one was a Democratic district and this one was a Republican district, we'd pretty much just stay stuck in the political cycle that we've been for far too long. I think with the introduction of somebody like a Donald Trump, whether you like him or whether you hate him, he changed politics forever. We got to see that a regular person that had no political experience was able to ascend to the highest office in the land, no matter what they say about him. Right now, you see a lot of Democratic senators running in these swing states that are now putting Donald Trump all over their ads. They're not talking about Kamala Harris, just like they weren't talking about Joe Biden, because they understand and feel the mood of the country, and the mood of the country has changed. So I think with somebody like Donald Trump at the top of the ticket, yes, since I understand historically he may have not done that well, but all indications right now, whether it was Joe Biden or Kamala Harris now, is he's doing way better in New Jersey than he did in 2020 or in 2016. And I think that will pay dividends for people like myself in the state.
Are you disappointed that the Trump campaign hasn't put more of an effort into winning New Jersey? I know he hinted at it at the Wildwood rally. He said, maybe we'll play here, maybe we can win in New Jersey, but he really hasn't. They really, if anything, and by the way, same thing with the Democrats. New Jersey has openly become an exporter state, and Republicans and Democrats are driving through your district to get to Pennsylvania, to try and work there. Do you think that was the right strategy? Could Trump have really competed in New Jersey had they targeted it and made it a battleground?
Well, I think he's done, more than most Republican candidates have in, recent history, especially in my lifetime. And that's a lot. That's a big difference. It has to start somewhere. He's done 2 rallies here now that, produced over 150,000 people, here in New Jersey at those rallies.
Think of it that, I don't know if you were there or not, and I was not there.
Yes, I was.
Do you really feel confident in those numbers?
Yeah, I would. No, I'm not. I said in both rallies combined.
Both rallies. Okay.
I think there was like 80 to 100,000 at the last rally. And there was definitely, 40, 50,000 plus at the first rally down in Wildwood. And I was at both of those rallies. I'll also be at his rally at MSG this Sunday. And I'm looking forward to seeing magic, man. I was telling somebody the other day, what we're watching right now, I think, when we sit back, a couple of decades from now, we'll really start to appreciate what we're watching and what we're witnessing in real time. But to me, it's magic. It's really magic that's happening. A lot of people are inspired right now all across this country, and specifically here in New Jersey. Again, even though we're talking about a president that lost by almost 20 points in 2020. And since that time, Joe Biden was polling at the best polling had us at about a 1 point deficit going up against Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is back up to that 7, 8, 9, 10 mark. But that's still a 10 to 15, 16 point swing from where we were just in 2020. To me, that's significant. Now, listen, I'm a political novice compared to most people, and I understand that those numbers don't necessarily directly correlate, to my district. So I don't think if he's down 10 points that my race is going to be down 10 points as well. But it means something. And we had a thing where, when Jack Ciattarelli ran for office a few years ago, yes, he didn't win, but also all the polls had him losing by 17, 18 points. He ended up losing by less than 3 points. But one thing that went unnoticed is how many seats we picked up here in New Jersey as Republicans. And that was over 100 seats on the state and local level between assemblymen, state senators, mayors, councilmen and women, and different things. So people like myself and the people that are really here for the right reasons for the Republican Party in New Jersey, I think we understand those things. I remember I was the same person 4 or 5 years ago when it was unpopular, telling people to send in your mail-in ballot, vote early, because you have to play the game and win the game in order to wield that power. Now we see all over this country right now, and even President Trump is, pushing people to do the same. We have record amounts of early voting ballots being cast around this country, which pay huge dividends for Republicans all across this country, just like it did for Ron DeSantis when it happened for them a couple of years ago during his re-election. So I'm excited, man. I think we're in a very good position, and I think Donald Trump just gave us a platform here in New Jersey to ascend, which I hope we all do and continue in the years going forward.
And one of the things that I don't want to make this. I want to make this about Darius Mayfield, and not spend the whole time talking about Donald Trump, because I think that's what happens. Frequently is everything shifts, all the oxygen shifts to the top of the ticket for both parties. So this is you're running a low budget grassroots campaign, and this is an opportunity for me to talk to you about what you believe in. So if let's talk about some issues. Let's start with affordability, which candidates from both parties in New Jersey come back and they say this is what they hear most from people, that New Jersey is not affordable, that the country is not affordable. What's your plan to deal with people's needs to have be able to afford to live a decent quality life without always being in debt?
Yeah, well, one of the things I would propose and co-sponsor and fight really hard to get done, and I'm happy Donald Trump was talking about it the other day, is reinstate the SALT deductions, which was something that was a part of those 2017 tax cuts, as far as taking them away, that I was a little bit disappointed in. But I do think they need to be reinstated, not just for New Jersey, but states around this country that have a housing affordability problem, like we do here in New Jersey. Not only do we have an affordability problem, but we have a capacity problem. We're not building enough here in New Jersey, in places like Trenton, New Jersey, where they're below the mark by like 40,000 units in a place like Trenton, New Jersey. We wonder why we see so much poverty. We wonder why we see so much homelessness and things of that sort. So one would definitely be bringing back those SALT deductions. Two would be making us energy independent again, and we can talk about this ad nauseum, but one of the reasons why things are so unaffordable, the main reason they're so unaffordable, is because of the energy policy of the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris administration, as well as the reckless spending that they've done since they've been in office. It's a very easy fix to start once again granting these drilling leases all across the country, drilling on federal land, making sure we wean ourselves off the fuel of our adversaries in some cases like Iran and Venezuela, and make sure we're looking out for ourselves, and make sure we take that liquid gold that we have right under our feet and use it for our best ability. So that's one of the main things we can do as far as making ourselves once again energy independent, which will drive down the price of virtually everything at the end of the day, because whether it's your food, whether it's products you buy for yourself, your clothes, everything is transported and run through energy, through fuel. And we wonder why these prices are rising so rapidly. So that's one of the things we need to do. We also need to take a fiscally conservative approach to how we pass budgets going forward. The other reason why we're in such debt and we have such great inflation is because of the amount of money that we're spending. One of the interesting interesting thing because one of the things that I want to do is make sure we take those 2017 tax cuts, which we allowed to expire, and once again reinstate those and make those permanent. And one of the interesting things is people like Bonnie Watson Coleman try to argue that we're just giving tax cuts to the rich, and that didn't really help. Well, one, that's wrong because once we passed those tax cuts, we saw the greatest amount of wage gain growth that we've seen in this country in decades without inflation to actually stall that out. So we had a real wage gain. And one thing that they don't talk about is that ever since they passed that legislation, the United States of America has collected more tax dollars than it ever has every single year since that time. And that's because they cut out a lot of the loopholes and, we grew the economy. So, when they say these things, it really just doesn't make sense at the end of the day when you're really watching what's going on. And it also tells you that we don't have a taxing problem in this country. We have a spending problem in this country.
So what about livable wages? What about raising the minimum wage? New Jersey raised the minimum wage starting in 2018. The federal government hasn't. Is this a state issue? Should the federal government be involved in setting that wage?
I mean, I think it's something that we would have to look at. I would say off top, it's probably more of a state issue because different places demand different wages. And for example, it doesn't cost as much to live here in New Jersey than it does. I'm sorry, it costs more to live here in New Jersey than it does in Alabama or Mississippi or Georgia or somewhere like that. So, in a place like New York where they really might feel they need a $12 to $15 minimum wage to, make sure people are at least okay because, the local government there is out of control and has driven prices up to the point of nauseum, they might need to do that. But in a place like Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, that may not necessarily be what they need or what they want. In fact, it might hurt their country if they try to follow the same path just because somebody else is doing it and just because somebody thinks it's the right thing to do. So I do happen to believe that is a state issue, but I do also think that states need to reevaluate that from time to time, whether that's every few years, to really make sure people are able to find a living wage and find the right work. But at the same time, we also need to focus on bringing more current, more technologically savvy jobs in different places around this country as we go into the future. Because, when it comes to places like McDonald's, Burger King, different things like that, those were jobs that people like myself, Americans, in high school and right out of high school, used to work at to make sure that they're keeping busy with themselves, make sure they started learning responsibility, those sorts of things. These were never jobs meant for people to settle into and create entire careers around a whole staff at a fast food restaurant. And I truly believe that. So we kind of want to get back to that. We get back to the entry level jobs that people can go to, our kids in this country can go to keep themselves out of trouble, especially when all their other resources are being taken away, like after school programs, different things like that in different communities. And from there, make sure they're getting quality educations to capture the jobs of the future that are paying livable wage. Kind of like places like New York City when Google wanted to come and build a plant there, but people like AOC played politics and end up taking that entire job. We want to make sure we're bringing those quality jobs to New Jersey. I want to make sure I'm bringing those quality jobs here to District 12. And if they elect me on November 5th, we'll do just that.
And I want to ask about some global issues too, because that's hugely important in your quality of life for everybody right now and what the focus of America is on. What's your view on Israel and Hamas? What's the solution to ending this war that is now in its 53rd week?
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to take diplomacy, but it's also going to take strength. Some of that strength of which Israel is displaying right now. Listen, none of us want war. Americans, the American people definitely don't want war. We're not a war-driven people. We want peace, and we want peace for everybody. Now, make no mistakes. What Hamas did on October 7th was completely apparent, completely unacceptable, and Israel had every single right to defend themselves and do what's necessary to to root out that problem. You're talking about a day on October 7th where over 2,500 people were killed and over 7,000 people were injured. This is not the United States of America. Their population is much smaller than ours. So sometimes they say that that's the equivalent to like 10 to 20 9/11s here in America. That's unacceptable. And any rational, reasonable person is going to respond to such an atrocity as Israel did. Now, does that mean that everything that Israel is doing is the right thing to do? Absolutely not, because, in war, it's dirty. It's tough. Things happen, and this is why we don't want these things to happen in the first place. And I truly do believe that had President Trump still been president after 2020, it would have never happened. We were on the right track. We had the Abraham Accords going. We were bringing peace to the Middle East. We had Saudi Arabia and Israel talking about creating diplomatic relations for the first time ever. There's a lot of positive things going on in the Middle East. And I don't think we give enough credit to this day, but I definitely want to credit that administration. And I look forward to continuing that once President Trump is reelected. Once I'm elected to the House of Representatives, and making sure we bring the Middle East once and for all. I went to East Brunswick Day about a week and a half ago, and the first couple that came up to me was a Jewish family, and they said they wanted to ask me the same question about Israel and what my thoughts on it were, and I went over everything with them. At the end of that conversation, she looked at me and she said, "We voted Democrat our entire lives, but this time we're voting for President Trump and you in the 12th district." And that was everything I needed to understand that I have a rational take on what's going on. And I also explained to her, listen, Americans were critical of the American government when we went to war in Iraq, right? Especially after we found out that there was no weapons of mass destruction. So I did explain to her that there may be some criticism about some of the things Israel is doing and some of the ways they go about that. Nobody can take that personally. We're the United States of America. We are going to criticize, we are going to investigate, and we are going to let our feelings be known. But at the end of the day, as your next representative, please understand that I have your back 100%. You're absolutely able to and should defend yourself and root out the problem. But we also have to come to a conclusion in this war. We also have to act as for the first world nations that we are, because one thing I can tell you is to the wars in the Middle East, Americans are tired of it. These things have been going on for so long, and we understand there's a rich history there. But we also know that there are pathways to peace, and we started to see some of those pathways just a few years ago. So I would work hard to get back to those pathways, to reinstate the Abraham Accords, and make sure we have diplomacy happening within and throughout the Middle East between Israel and their neighbors, and the place that we all want to be, which is wars and peace. So all of our families, no matter if they're Israeli, no matter if they're Jewish, no matter if they're Muslim, can grow and learn and progress in peace.
What about Russia and Ukraine? I mean, this has gone on longer than a lot of people thought it would. Would you support the U.S. Giving Ukraine missiles that can go deeper inside Russia and try and defend itself that way?
Well, I don't think we're going to actually get to that point, because as I told you, I do think that there is going to be a red wave like we haven't seen in quite some time in this country. And just like with Israel and Hamas, I don't believe that the incursion into Ukraine would have ever happened had Donald Trump still been president. And I think a lot of people are beginning to understand that and believe that. So we need to make sure that will come to an end as quick as possible. But listen, there has been so much carnage. There has been so much killing. There has been so much damage. I don't think anybody really know, where we go from here and how we actually get to the place we were before, if that's even possible. So, that's just another one of those situations that we have to analyze and look at. This is what I will say. I remember when we were about to vote on one of the packages going to Ukraine, and Republicans held it up, and we went back and renegotiated that package. One of the things that we don't talk about is what they renegotiated was the fact that at least a small piece, I would have liked to see a larger piece of it, but at least a small piece of that package required Ukraine to actually reimburse Americans for the funds being doled out for this war. when you have elected officials go on live TV like we saw Mayorkas do and basically tell us that FEMA will run out of money very soon, but yet every time we're looking for the president to stroke his pen and send billions of dollars overseas to fund these wars, there's no problems, there's no objections. There's something wrong, and I think the American people understand that and they feel that. So they want us to be savvy in the way we negotiate and the way we handle things, and that means when we have to come to the defense of some of these countries, especially after what happened in 2020 election, we're going to need to make sure that the American people are made whole at the end of the day. We can't just keep spending. We can't just keep sending money for lives to be lost. The American people really on the hook for all this. We see our elected officials all around this country basically giving our services away to illegal migrants, letting us know that FEMA is running out of money because we've been spending so much money elsewhere. The American people won't anymore. So we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'm not sitting here saying that we're not saying that we're allies and we shouldn't be, helping people around the country. We absolutely should, but we want to make sure our priorities straight. We want to get America's backyard in order first, and then we can worry about a lot of the other stuff. I do believe that once we take power of the presidency, of the House, of the Senate, that is a war that will come to an end quickly, and then it's going to be a matter of figuring out how we rebuild and get back to a place they need to be.
Yeah. So one of the issues where Bonnie Watson Coleman has taken a strong leadership role in Washington and not at all inconsistent with her record when she was in the state legislature is on abortion and on her support of reproductive rights and her Supreme Court invalidating Roe. Where are you and Congresswoman Watson Coleman different on abortion?
Well, we're different on abortion because, one, I think that the right decision was made. Even though at the time it was made, I wasn't too happy because I think that's a big part of the reason why we didn't have that red wave in the midterms a couple of years ago. And I can admit that. But at the end of the day, it had to be done, and it's done now. Here's the good news for New Jerseyans that think like Bonnie Watson Coleman. In New Jersey, you can have an abortion up to 9 months. Am I for that? Do I agree with that? Absolutely not. But do I accept the results of the people? Do I accept what our legislators have put into practice and what they've made law? I always will, and I always have. In order for us to change something like that, you have to garner that power. Now, here's what I will say. As far as federally, because that's not really an issue that I would be dealing with as far as New Jersey is concerned federally, I would not support any type of abortion ban federally. I am a fiscal conservative. I am a conservative that believes in smaller government, like most conservatives claim to believe in. By us passing a federal abortion ban, that would be creating larger government. So I would absolutely, and I was happy to see Trump say the same thing, that he would not support any type of national abortion ban federally, and nor will I. Now, to me, again, there's one thing as far as policy. There's another thing when it comes to your personal beliefs and what you're personally educated on and what you personally know. Here's what I know. I understand that, the formation of things like Planned Parenthood and things of those come from very nefarious beginnings. I happen to know that when those things were created, they were specifically, with the people that created them, were specifically put into place to decrease the population of Black people, Jewish people, and those with special needs. No matter how you want to look at it, that's just the facts. That's just the history. No matter how you look at it now and all the great things they've done throughout the communities, those are the facts. And that's where it actually began. And since that time, had that never happened.
I mean, do you really think there's evidence of that, or is this just a talking point? And my job, when I moderate these types of discussions, and it's not a debate between you and your opponent. It's certainly not a debate with you and I. I think one thing I hear from Democrats and Republicans is they are tired of the media giving their opinion, and they really just want to give candidates a forum to talk. But there are those in New Jersey who think that Planned Parenthood in New Jersey, in other states across the country, provide a really necessary service for women's health issues. Do you really think that they are the evil empire?
Yeah, so and that's why I prefaced my comment before, because I agree in some ways. I'm sure there are some services like contraception and different things that they provide that people really need. But the conversation right now is specifically about abortion. And listen, when they struck down Roe v. Wade, one of the things that struck me was in Louisiana, there was this big uproar and people kept bringing up Louisiana, Louisiana, Louisiana. Come to find out, in Louisiana, when they struck down Roe v. Wade, there was only two Planned Parenthood clinics in Louisiana, in the entire state. You know where those two places were? Right smack dab in the middle of black and brown neighborhoods. Black people make up 13% of the population in this country, but over 60% of the advertising from Planned Parenthood goes to those communities, right? Not suburban white communities. We're talking about very distressed urban communities with a lot of black and brown people in them. One survey came out. Somebody did research on this. I can't recall exactly who it was, but they had said, had Planned Parenthood never been established, or such draconian abortion laws been established, the black population in this country would be double what it is right now. So instead of having 40 to 50 million people in this country, black people in this country, we'd have close to 100 million people in this country. So you asked me a question before, do I believe, that it has some dark undertones? I mean, listen, these are just facts. We understand who created Planned Parenthood. That was Margaret Sanger. We understand what she was about. We understand the things that she said. These are all common knowledge. These are things that you can Google and look up. So I think, sometimes people complain about the media, but I think more so they complain when the media starts telling the truth too much. Not too many people are going to say what I'm saying right now, and these are actual facts. I'm not saying anything to be, to make the news or go viral. I'm just telling you what actually happened. You know who else believes these things? You know who else feels these things? Because you asked me a question before: is Bonnie Watson Coleman winning by consensus? She's not. She's co-opting very minority groups of people in places like Trenton. That's the church group that she has a hold of, as well as the LGBTQ community. But when you go into the hood like I did and knock over 6,000 doors in Trenton, New Jersey, in those projects, in those developments where people no longer vote because they feel so disenfranchised, they talk about these things. They understand these things. I met a girl in Trenton, New Jersey when I was walking last time that was 6.5 months pregnant. She told us, I don't even want to know what the baby is. I'm going to in 2 days to get rid of it. That's where we've kind of brought the psyche of people down to where they don't even believe they have other choices. What I want to do is educate people. We understand mistakes happen. I also believe in exceptions. I believe in exceptions for the life of a mother, rape, and incest. But if you do have a kid and it's not something that you think you can bring to term, there are options, and we need to start educating people about that. There's so many people out here that can't have kids. There's so many people out here that want to adopt. There's so many different options that people are just unaware of. And it seems like we've kind of put those things to the bottom, and we've made abortion everything, where we've made that the end all be all answer. And it just doesn't have to be that way. So I'm about life. I'm about saving life, not destroying life time and time and time again. So we need to educate people, and at the same time, Republicans need to not necessarily talk down to people that have made those decisions in the past. I know plenty of women that have had abortions. It doesn't make me look at them any different, but I also want to make sure that the future generations coming up understand that that's not your only option. So we need to educate people and not be afraid to, ultimately just tell the truth. And that's all I'm doing with you here, man, is just telling you the truth, giving you the facts, and letting you know exactly what people understand and why we're in the conditions that we're in right now.
So let's talk a little bit about your campaign and frustrations and you and I have had some very honest, frank conversations. As to how much even the New Jersey Globe has been able to cover the 12th district, but we're living in this very strange era in terms of a local news desert, in your district and other parts of the state, where daily newspapers don't cover campaigns for Congress. How are you supposed to? Everybody talks about the influence of money in politics. How's a guy like Darius Mayfield expected to get people to know who he is and what he stands for, and why he should be elected if the media doesn't cover you?
Yeah, I guess maybe I should do what a lot of people say and join the Democratic Party, right? A lot of people told me if I was a Democrat, I'd be on my way to the governorship right now, right? But it's about more than that, man. It's about more than that. It's about this country. And really saving this country and making sure the next generation not only has the same opportunities that I had, but more and many more. For the richest country in the world, I don't think there's an excuse for anything less. You know, we have to work. We have to outwork our opponents. We have to work hard, since the age of 14, 15, when I started working construction with my uncle, then get into the car business at 17 years old. I've always been a very hard worker, working long hours, lots of days. And, I was always successful in anything I put my mind to and anything I wanted to do, which is why I know that ultimately, no matter when that happens, I'll be successful in politics as well, as I've already been. I feel like I've already been successful in politics from everything that I've done up and down this state, all across the country. So I think it's nowhere but up from here. But
You've
we
got a
have to.
following, by the way. That is clear. You have developed a loyal group of people in your district who believe that Darius Mayfield could be president someday. I hear it. I get it from local Republicans in the 12th district. They think you're terrific. They really do. You are probably a different kind of candidate in the sense that you're a conservative Republican. You don't run away from that. You don't seem to, but you don't seem to bash the party establishment like others do in tough races. You seem to respect the establishment more than candidates that are in other districts that have equally as tough races as you do. Do you feel like the party's been helping you as much as they can?
I mean, I guess the party's been helping as much as they can. Doesn't mean that I've gotten a lot of help because
Yeah.
New Jersey, especially the Republican Party, is still building. There's just not a lot of resources to go around because we've been losing for so long. So as I said before, you have to start somewhere. I've had meetings with Bob Hugan. I just sat down with him last week. Bob's there anytime I call. Has done anything I've asked him to do. So I couldn't be more appreciative of what Bob's done for me and what people all across the party, whether it's Jack Chitterelli, different mayors and different people. Everybody has been gracious to me. And I think a lot of that comes from, my experience. Again, I come from very humble beginnings, come from the hood, but I also became a very successful businessman, especially within the automotive industry. So I know how to adapt. I know how to deal with people of all stripes, whether we're in the streets or whether we're in politics or whether we're in business. And I think I'm just well-rounded that way, from your lips to God's ears and all my other constituents. Maybe one day we'll run for the presidency. It's definitely something that I thought about as a kid, many people know my story. My mother used to ask me all the time what I wanted to be when I grew up. I told her president of the United States. I can tell you this, I don't jump into anything half-baked. I left $250,000 a year job, 5-6 years ago to go into politics. Some people call me crazy. Sometimes I look back like, man, I miss making all that money. But, I do believe that I was put on this earth for a higher purpose. I honestly believe that God put me here for a higher purpose. I love giving back to people. I love helping people from all stripes. I'm in Trenton one day. I'm in Manville another day with the floods and everything happening out there. I'm in white neighborhoods. I'm in black neighborhoods. I'm in Spanish neighborhoods. I was just at all of the Diwali Indian celebrations just the other day. Again, which is indicative of how I grew up, who I am, and how I'm able to relate to people. And I will say this, the question you asked before, as far as getting on media and stuff, we have to try to raise some money. We have to try to be unconventional. I will be going up. I have been reached out to by some people that didn't necessarily reach out last time around. And I've been fortunate, like iHeart. I did a whole campaign with them for a week, running ads all over their biggest stations, from the hip hop stations to the conservative ones. And I'm actually starting a new thing this weekend with Hot 97 and WBLS, where we'll be all over their radio stations over the next couple of weekends as early voting starts. So this time around, I'm definitely looking into more media outlets to kind of get out there a little bit like that. But listen, you have to start somewhere. And I'm hoping that, one day, not just myself, but New Jersey becomes a political powerhouse. We do start garnering that national attention. But I also understand, based on my life, that you have to put in the work and do the work to see the results. And we'll just continue to do that.
You seem to enjoy it. You seem to enjoy going out and meeting voters and the retail politics. And I mean, it's just we're all wired differently. I ran for office 40 years ago and spent 4 years in local office, and I was not the right guy for retail politics. That was, I'm meant to be put in some back room somewhere and close the door and don't
You were a
don't let this
mayor,
guy out of that
man.
room.
You were a
Yeah,
mayor.
but you have to know like what your own limitations are, and retail wasn't for me. It seems like retail is for you. It seems like you're actually enjoying it. That you're not just going through those motions of going to events because that's what you have to do in order to be a congressman.
Well, yeah, I mean, I come from the sales world, so
Mhm.
that sales mentality is in me. That wheel that just doesn't stop spinning, especially when I'm in a certain situation. So whether that was selling cars back then or now just talking to constituents and things of that sort, yeah, I do think that fire burns. I also, for quite some time now, I haven't celebrated my birthday for probably over a decade. On my birthday, I typically like to go out there and do things, whether it's giving clothes away to the homeless, doing a food drive, giving back in some way. As I said, I do believe that I am on a mission from God. I honestly do believe that. Otherwise, listen, I would have never left my $250,000 a year job. I mean, I really believe had I kept that job and stayed there, I could have probably been a VP or looking over multiple stores by now had I, entrenched myself in that industry as I once did and, went for it as I always did. But God had a different plan for me. And here I am. So that's why it brings me joy, because I'm doing something that actually makes me happy. I'm doing something that I feel I'm actually being led to do. And it's kind of like work. When you do something that you love, when you do something that you feel like you're being led to do, the happiness is always going to show, and it's going to be a lot easier to work hard at it and produce results. So I think I'm on the right path. Who knows, what's going to happen going forward and what happens on November 5th. But I do think I've started something that's not going to end anytime soon. And I look forward to seeing where God takes me on this journey.
So let me let you close because we're doing a live stream, so I don't have I don't have another show starting in a minute. We don't have to there's no commercials and you're not paying for the time, so it's free. And I you know
Appreciate
and
that.
I know candidates like that. So let me let you close. Let me let you talk about who Darius Mayfield is, what you stand for, what you believe in, and what's your pitch to 12th district voters about why they should elect you on November 5th.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, David, and thank you for having me on again. You've always been great to me, and I appreciate you and New Jersey Globe for all you've done over this last few years. A kid coming out of nowhere that had no political experience, and really, in your own way, shining a light on them. So I really do appreciate that. And for the constituents of District 12, for the people of America, I know we all talk about wanting people that represent us. We all talk about wanting people that don't disparage others, no matter what their political affiliation is. We always talk about people that are about peace and know how to show genuine love. I'm your guy. I'm that guy. I've done it all my life. I've done it over the past 5 years since I've been running for office, and I'll never change. I know we've had a lot of people that have ascended to elected positions and over time have changed because of money, because of power. I've had a lot of those things already. That's not what drives me. What drives me is teaching people how great this country is. What drives me is seeing people ascend to levels that they never thought possible. I hear so many people nowadays, and no matter where I go, that just don't have the most confidence, that just are always talking about why they won't be able to do something, why they can't. And I think the media has a lot to do with that, especially when it comes to young Black and brown kids, when they're telling them this one's going to stop them, or the KKK, or this one or that one. Listen, we understand there's problems. We understand racism exists. Those things are probably never going to go away, but that doesn't have to stop you from being great, especially in this great country. We are the only country in the world that's had those problems, but has diligently worked through those problems. And although they're not fixed completely, I promise you, we're in a better place than almost anywhere else in the world. I understand that. I understand that we are an extraordinary people, and I want everybody that lives here, every citizen of this country, country to not only understand that, but be able to go forward in life and live that way every day, no matter if you're Black, white, brown, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Catholic, whatever it is. If you are an American citizen, you went about things the right way, you are a law-abiding citizen, we will always make sure the American dream is well within reach for you. You just got to work hard and go out and get it. And if you guys elect me on November 5th, I promise you we'll make that easier than ever to do.
Darius Mayfield, Republican candidate for Congress in the 12th District. Thank you so much for coming to talk to me, and thanks for sharing your views on your candidacy. And one way or the other, we'll talk on November 5th.
Yes, sir. I look forward to it, bro. It's going to be a good day.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, David.